concepts. In fact, all these concepts are there in Unit 1 and 2 of MDI 001, which is the methodology and the theorization of all these terms. In fact, these terms are continuously changing with new definitions coming in. So I thought, let me just give it a break and go through that. I've combined Unit 1 and 2 of MDI 001 to tell you to discuss these terms. In fact, in Unit 1 and 2, the term of mobility is not there. I think Ujjwal was asking about mobility last time. So I've included mobility term also out there. And as I said, the basic thing about academics and scholarly things is the fact that more often than not, you have to figure out who is the guy defining and what is the context. The context and the scholar changes the way things come about. And in fact, this is what I was explaining, Chong. It depends on who is telling in what context. All those, definitions or those words sometimes are used interchangeably. So let's go on to it directly to see what it is about. Okay, guys, you can hear my voice and see the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So this is, as I said, Block 1, MDI 001, Unit 1 and 2. And I have added the concept of mobility in it, which is not a part of any unit. At least I didn't come across the term mobility, but mobility also becomes an important concept. So let's go through it. One needs to understand something. Basically, the story of human history or the story of human being is the history of migration or mobility. Migration, mobility, it's a movement. It's not a new phenomena, rather it is as old as human beings. So any person who is interested in human history, we need to understand human evolution happened. Modern human evolution happened about a lakh years ago. Humans have been on the planet for much longer time. There were other species of humans. The modern human being evolved about a lakh years ago. Most of the evolution happened in Africa. Earlier, it was known that the evolution happened in East Africa, but more findings are found out that there were other sites where human evolution happened. And all evolution, because happened in a particular place or a continent, all human beings today across the world have traveled across. So anytime, and that's where the irony is when people and countries and continents talk about immigration or foreigners are bad or immigrants are bad. Actually, all of us are immigrants in a particular way because we have all migrated. And if we were to do our genetic composition, all of us would have a certain percentage of the African genes. People used to migrate from one place to another, from one continent to another. International migration relates to movement of people across national. So international migration. So we all migrating, and migration is a continuous process, and it has happened throughout history. So basic thing about migration is a permanent or a semi-permanent change of residence by an individual, family, or a group. Remember, the concept of families, the concept of marriage came much later. It were individuals, groups, clans, communities, can be caused by various factors: better economic opportunity, lifestyle, better education level. Also understand the whole concept of better can also be a perceived better. So a better may not be an actual better, but a perceived better. Remember, a human being works on multiple factors. A lot of times we perceive something to be better. It can nowadays it can also be because of climate change, historically natural calamities, epidemics, wars, genocide, religious and social ostracization, etc., is a part of migration. US as a continent was made up of migrants who were deviants, who were rebels, who Europeans who typically came and settled, and subsequently made other people came and settled. So in fact, today each country, each continent has a lot of immigrants within it. Can also be of various types: voluntary, involuntary, forced, internal, international, temporary, permanent, regular. See how the definitions, it depends on how you define it. So Demko, Ross, and Schnell describe migration as the most complex component of population change. And you need to also understand migration is, as I said, a perceived change or a change for the better. So there have been various theories as to why humans which evolved in Africa migrated. They could have migrated because of overpopulation. They could have migrated because of lack of resources. They could have migrated just for the, to find something more, adventurous. There could be multiple reasons, and the very fact that humans migrated and inhabited all parts of the world, and you might think, how did they cross oceans? How did they come to Australia, to New Zealand, to America? So there are multiple routes, and if you read something about how they migrated, it's a fascinating read. Migration provides an important network for the diffusion. Now, every time humans migrate, there is a diffusion of ideas and information, symptoms of social and economic change. Remember, when a human being migrates or any being migrates, there is a whole ecosystem which goes around. With human beings, there is more. Human being migrates, with his or her culture, with his or her lifestyle, with his or her ideas. We have seen in one of the earlier units how migration, immigration, diasporas leads to innovation. It leads to a better business environment, and that's one of the reasons migration is an interdisciplinary subject, because it inevitably affects just about every aspect of lifestyle, economic, environment, social problems. So, according to Castles, migration is a part of the process of transformation, social structures and institution, and entire global political economy. Because now there is, for example, if an Indian who and that, in fact, there's a lot of argument or discussion about the fact that Indians do so well outside because we, with the lack of resources, the kind of work we are able to do out here, once a certain amount of processes, institutions, and resources are available, then Indians are able to excel, which would be there with respect to all developing economies, global south. Sociologists observe that the factors which influence decision of an immigrant can be divided: those openings in the area of origin at the destination. So the push and the pull factors work simultaneously. For example, when the Middle East or the Gulf countries discovered oil, they needed labor for tapping that oil and the whole oil industry. They needed labor. That was a pull factor. And countries which had young working population, there was not even employment, there was poverty. There was a push factor to go towards Middle East, and that's what how pull and push factors work across migration scenarios. There is a pull and a push factors. At a micro level, migration is the result of decision made by an individual. Now, this also is a debatable statement. In fact, subsequent to scholars have found out a lot of times decisions may not be rational. It could be because of many other factors rather than a rational decision taking. For example, a chain migration is you already have people out there, and you perceive your life becomes that much better because of those people out there. Uh, you take a decision which may not be the rational decision, but there are many other factors, as many scholars have shown. Now, a migration can be classified in various ways. There is a geographical classification, which includes transoceanic, transcontinental, border, neighbor migration, regional migration. Then there is a chronological based on time period. For example, the Indian migration is based on three distinct periods: the indentured labor, the 60s, and the 90s. Then there is a demographic, economic classification, categories like individual, families, male, female, highly skilled. For example, recently there is the migration, the what is termed as the feminization of migration, because more and more women are migrating. Earlier, migration was typically with women joining males, married women joining their husbands. Now, unmarried women are also moving. There is a lot of migration because of education. Young, unmarried women are also moving about for studies, they are moving about for jobs, and so on and so forth. There is a political and legal classification, which includes migrants under regular or illegal migrants. Casual classifications will include free or forced migration, and various scholars have defined various ways of various classifications. Listen, again, I have picked up certain aspects from unit 1 and 2. You want to read more, you can find more information. And again, as I keep telling you, once you decide to pick up more information, you can always go to Google it. You can go to Chat GPT and ask answers. Always remember, whenever you are using the net to find out more information, try and cross verify and cross check. Google can give you erroneous results. Chat GPT can give you always erroneous results. Whenever you search or you ask AI, always cross verify, and cross verify from either known sources, reputed sources, or do multiple cross verification, because inevitably internet is a place where anybody and everybody can put information, and you can actually end up with wrong information. ChatGPT earlier used to give a lot of wrong references. I am told it has become better. Remember, ChatGPT being an AI engine keeps getting better with more data getting coming in. But remember also the fact that all these data-fied, technology can be manipulated by threat actors. By bad actors can put in bad data. So United Nations fixes two basic features of international migration: migrant stock and migration flow. So these two are the ways necessary to assess migration trends. Otherwise, how would a nation know as to how many immigrants are there? So, politically, a politician typically makes multiple, claims, which is in the realm of political rhetoric. We have also seen across the world there is this movement towards hating migrants, or feeling that migration or immigrants are bad, and they are spoiling culture. But we have also seen that immigrants bring in a lot of development into a host country. They are able to give development into the country they come from, and immigration is what drives innovation. While the stock means a measure of the number of international migrants at any given point of time, flow means number of persons arriving, inflow, or departing, outflow. And also remember the fact that always people are on the move. They could be moved because of work, it could be moved because of tourism, this, that, and the other. People are continuously moving. So that is how international migrant stock and international migration flow is how they work out. There are models by which scholars determine this. At any point, migration can shift between categories. So these are the categories. In fact, the source is United Nations mobility and migration. Types of migration: regular, involuntary, undocumented. Regular could be family reunion, education, tourism, labor. Involuntary IDP, IDPs, internal displaced people, trafficked, abducted, asylum seekers. Uh, Involuntary could also be medical, sudden medical emergency for which you need to go. Regular could also be medical. tourism could be medical tourism is another sector. Today, for example, as our friend from Mozambique said, there are so many hundreds of people from Mozambique who come to India for treatment. In fact, where I stay in Gurgaon, if you go to a couple of these private hospitals, I see a lot of people from various countries who come and take treatment out there, because Indian treatment is that much more cheaper, and we have that specialty professionals out here. So they are migrants on tourist visa, they are deportees, assisted voluntary returns. And remember, these are not fixed categories. They can be looked at as fixed categories. A lot of times they are much more fluxy. So a person can go as a tourist and then look at asylum out there, or it could be undocumented out there. These categories keep moving among each other. So a couple of theories on international migration. In fact, your unit one gives more theories. I picked up one or two to get you to understand. Has been explained by various social scientists like sociologists, and as we talked about, migration is an interdisciplinary subject. The theories have been explained by sociologists, anthropologists, demographers, economists, and each particular field will explain migration in their own way of interpretation. So there is something called a neoclassical theory from a macro level perspectives of geographical difference in supply and demand. Uh, uh, and in fact, you see a large part of the explanation happens in the economic realm. A country or a region which has a large presence of labor relative to the availability of capital will have excess supply of labor and low wages. Typically, how the global south and the global north are there, and how movement happens from the global south to the global north, largely. So this is a macro perspective. To the presence of labor, we'll have labor scarcity and resultant high wages. Are you able to hear my voice? I see an internet unstable message. Guys, are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir,
Okay.
very clear.
Okay, okay. I suddenly got a message that my internet was unstable. So I checked up. So on the other hand, a country or region which has large capital, typically the global south and the global north. North does not have labor, it has capital, whereas south has labor, has no capital, and inevitably there is movement from the global south to the global north. As a consequence, the difference in wages induce the labor from labor surplus, low wage countries to move to labor scarce, high wage countries. Typically, what India is going through in terms of unemployment, or Russia to be able to earn money itself shows the movement or migration of people. Neoclassical theory therefore implies that labor market mechanisms are direct and sole factors influencing the decision. This is not true. There are many other factors. Always remember, in academics, whenever any scholar comes up with a particular factor, that is a deterministic theory, because inevitably in life or in other aspects, there are always multiple factors at play. Think about it yourself. Every decision that you take cannot be because of one factor. There are multiple factors. One factor could weigh more than the other factors, but there are always multiple factors. So, decision of individuals. So, international migration and investment in human capital. Now, inevitably, whenever you migrate, it comes at a cost. It comes at a human cost. It comes at another cost. In order to earn higher wages, investment have to be made. So, if you have to migrate to, let's say, the Gulf, you need to have money to take the plane ticket in terms of stay, etc. So there has to be money which comes in. For example, there was this study which was done in Punjab where they showed that how indebted Punjab households are, because a lot of Punjabis have migrated abroad, and to get them to migrate, people take loans. So there is a debt which comes in. The expense of travel, cost of living by looking at the work, efforts required to learn another language, adjusting to a different culture, psychological cost. There are all these costs. So anytime a person says a better lifestyle, it's a perceived better lifestyle, because to move from one lifestyle to another voluntary involves a lot of costs. Meeting new people are examples of such costs, and more often than not, we do not, or individuals do not take all these costs into consideration, and that's why a lot of times the decisions are not rational. So, for example, you look at internal migration. A lot of people who migrate from the rural heartland into metro living, the kind of infrastructure they get, sometimes, and the adjustments they have to make, it comes at a tremendous cost, because the families back home do not have a parent. Everything comes at a phenomenal cost. And many a times these costs are not computed when a person migrates. As a result, the theory assumes that pay and employment differentials across countries are the primary motivators for people to migrate. Migration will come to a halt once such disparities are eliminated. So inevitably, there is this disparities. If these disparities are eliminated, migration will be eliminated. We know, and we have seen, and we also research has found out that in fact when countries become, for example, when countries become richer, the migration does not halt. In fact, when a poor country becomes richer, or a family becomes richer, it becomes an additional incentive for people in that family to migrate. Earlier they had to take a loan to migrate, now they have the money to migrate. So there are many more factors which come into play. So this is the neoclassical theory. Then the next theory is it is integrated approach to connect. Guys, are you able to hear my voice? I'm getting an unstable message. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, it's breaking in
Okay.
between.
Okay, it's breaking. Are you able to hear it now?
Yes, sir, clear now. In between it.
Can you see this? Okay, can you see the screen at least?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, sir.
Okay. So, new economics of migration, 80s approach, integrated approach, different levels of social structure, account historical and individual rationality are no longer considered as the sole factors influencing decision making. Individual rationality and macroeconomics. So there are many other factors which come into play. And what are those factors? The significance of bigger. So inevitably, if you see internal migration, how are people
Your voice is breaking.
from, and if you're a service delivery woman person, ask that person, where are you from? And then ask the next question, how did you come to this place? For example, whenever I meet people in, say, Gurgaon, where I stay, I ask, how did you land up in Gurgaon? And more often than not, it would be because already somebody from the family or somebody from the village was there in Gurgaon. You can do this experiment in wherever you are staying, whichever part of the country you are staying, you can do this experiment. Ask the person, how do you come here and why did you come here? As the link between macro and micro level analysis, that people's collective goals are to maximize expected income while minimizing risk. So when you have already somebody there in a particular place, you are minimizing risk because you know the person. associated with all types of market failures, not only labor market failures. So, and that is the reason why inevitably in metropolitans like Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, Chennai, Kolkata, Chennai, whenever migration happens from a particular place in the country, you will see relatives, and this happens in the international migration also. Considering the fact that how people from Punjab reached Canada, one after the another, from the same family, from the same village. Similarly, things are happening in Australia, things are happening in the US, and it's not just India, across the world, the same thing happens. Economic improvement in sending nations may not mean the end of migration. On the contrary, it may increase the strain on migrants. A rise in return on local productivity will make more migration more appealing. As I said, once a family becomes richer, now becomes an incentive to send more migrants out as a means of overcoming capital and risk restriction. And individuals keep balancing risk and and the perceived betterment of individual life as well as conditions. So all individuals do risk management, whether it is whether they write it down or it is notional. There is something called a risk management which people do, and which determines the person's moving or not moving. Regardless of whether pay differentials exist or not, the model predicts that migration will persist. And we have seen over a period of time. So if you look at the last decade, migration continues to increase. There was a small blip in terms of when the COVID hit, when inevitably the transport halted and everybody went into a lockdown. The migration has again moved because people will continue to migrate. So I was reading about the fact that there are these 4 holidays which has happened, and everybody is moving about. They are going for tourism. They are going to places. People keep moving. Furthermore, households in community with varying income distribution may be motivated differentially by same predicted gain. So there is a certain amount of perception based on what humans take a decision. This is the new economics of migration. And here let's look at the concept of mobility. Now, migration is mobility, but the concept of mobility is much more than migration. Mobility is ability or capacity to move. Mobility researchers are not only interested in the ability of people to move, but also flow of goods through space and time. Mobility researchers also look at movement of ideas, movement of culture. So I'm again getting a message, internet connection is unstable. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Guys, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So think about the Suez Canal blockage 2021, what it meant for the movement of goods and how it impacted services. So mobility scholars are looking at, the migration scholars are looking at people migration, whereas the mobility scholars are looking at many other things besides the. So it's not just the mobility. The mobility scholars are looking at what prevents people from moving, what makes one individual group or material more mobile than another. That also they look. Are they characteristics of the individual groups or material characteristics of the landscape, or some combination of two? So mobility scholars are looking at, again, you can take a subject or a field of study, and when you start focusing on that field of study, you can in a scholarly or academic discipline, you can further go down and see if you can split it up into multiple, or you can combine multiple fields into one field. And each individual subject of study can be split up into multiple subjects. So a migration scholar can look at how international migration varies from domestic migration, what are the considerations, what factors come in, uh, how does the mobility get affected in internal and international, and so on, and a combination of both. Okay. So then we look at diaspora population is scattered across. So inevitably, for migration, people have to move. So there is mobility. Now, mobility involves people moving. When they move internally within the boundaries of a country, it is internal mobility or internal migration. When they move outside the boundary of a country, it is international migration. So when people move, it's migration. Mobility looks at not just people, but diaspora is a migrant population that is scattered across regions which are separated from its geographical place of origin. So inevitably, the concept of diaspora will only come in terms of the nation states. Because when there were no nation states, people were migrating. Once the concept of nation states come in, then an Indian is a diaspora, whereas earlier people were moving from one place to another. So the nation state determines between the earlier concept and the concept of diaspora. The word used in reference to people who identify. In fact, scholars, when they started about diaspora, uh, uh, a lot of times there were no nation states, there was kingdoms. So a particular person, so for example, if I was born and brought up and I stayed all my life or all my a young adult life in, let's say, a place which is Delhi, let's say, assuming the fact that Delhi was called Shahjahanpur, or whatever place, or Mehroli has been inhabited since the 3rd century. I was from Mehroli, and if I moved from Mehroli to someplace else, then I was a diaspora of Mehroli. So I hope you are able to understand this concept of diaspora, population that is scattered across regions which are separated from the geographical place of origin. Words used in reference to people who identify with a specific job but currently reside somewhere else. So they are migrants. They are residing somewhere else, but today, let's say, we call Indian diaspora with respect to the nation state of India, or American diaspora with respect to the nation state of America. Why this becomes confusing is because there are a lot of people who do not have a country. For example, Palestinian diaspora. Palestine is a country and yet occupied by Israel. Or, for example, Roma does not, or Kurds do not have a country at all. So Kurds are scattered among Syria, Turkey, and Iraq. And yet we call Kurdish diaspora. So it may not be a nation state, but it could be a contiguous place from which this particular community is evolved and scattered around, diaspora. And mostly the concept of diaspora and the studies of diaspora started with the Jewish experience, because the Jews, moved out. The first set of people who defined diaspora and looked at what diaspora, looked at the Jewish experience. The Jewish experience remained a paradigm for a very long time, marked by destruction of Jerusalem, dispersion of Jews to other areas, and the whole concept of the Jewish diaspora was a sense of captivity, exile, alienation, and isolation, a very negative connotation of diaspora, shade of victimization and negativity in the whole sense of the word. And that's how the earlier studies of diaspora happened. It was in the 90s that the whole concept of diaspora went beyond the Jewish diaspora. Postmodern world, the concept was radically altered with growing transnational, and I'll come to the transnational. Economic engagement, formal citizenship have evolved in recent decades. the concept of nation states came in, and the concept of diaspora also went further. Safran was one of the earliest scholars to come up with characteristics of diaspora. They or their ancestors have been dispersed from an original center to two or more foreign regions, retain a collective memory, vision, or myth about their homeland. They believe they are not and perhaps can never be fully accepted in host society and remain partly separate. Whole, premise of Safran himself has changed. Because remember, earlier concept of dispersion happens, the fact that people who have been dispersed or have moved out of their homeland will possibly never come back, and the idea of the homeland remained in their minds. So, for example, the Indian indentured labor who were taken to various parts of the world always had this, this myth or this longing for the homeland, and they knew they would never come back because the means of transportation was just not there. The concept of connectivity and means of transportation was just etc., etc., etc. Their ancestral home is idealized, though when conditions are favorable, either they or their descendants should return. Guys, are you able to hear my voice? Guys, are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, sir, but it's breaking sometimes.
Okay. I suddenly get a message that internet is unstable. Members of the diaspora should be committed to the maintenance. So these is more in sense of the fact that people, once they move, may or may not come back. This was the definitions, or this was the concept of diaspora before the globalization set in, where the means of transportation, the means of communication, connectivity was not as effective as it is today. Today, any person who goes out is 24 by 7 into 365 connected with the homeland. There is no myth, there is no visualization, there is memories, there is imagination because of media. Cohen in 1995, four additional features to Safran's definition. Diaspora, including scattering groups with aggressive or voluntary purpose, should possess a strong connection with the past that acts as a block to assimilation. So, somewhere down the line, they also looked at the fact that diasporas are these groups who will continue to maintain their culture, their identity. Now, we have seen also across the world who went as indentured laborers, now they become citizens. In fact, a lot of these people do not even identify themselves as Indians. They call themselves of that particular country because that helps them in assimilate. We have seen Indian Americans, second generation, third generation, who are more American than Indian. The each generation tries to hold on to a part of the culture, but obviously there's a lot of mixing which happens. Diaspora should be defined positively rather negative. The whole concept of earlier definitions of diaspora was negative because it evolved from the Jewish experience. People of the diasporas have a common identity with co-ethnic members in other countries, such as colonial settlers, overseas students, refugees, and economic. So Cohen gave additional features to the Safran's definition of diaspora. So that's how the diaspora definition change can be categorized. So diasporas also can be categorized as multiple, aspects. Let me come to this. Cohen identifies five types of diasporas: victim, refugees, imperial, colonial, labor, trade, business professionals, cultural, hybrid, postmodern. Now, this also is in the 90s. Remember, now we are sitting in the 21st century. This is the 20th century. There has been a marked change in terms of understanding. And again, diasporas have been defined differently by different scholars. In fact, a set of scholars, So, when partition happened, India, Pakistan got separated. Refugees we came from Pakistan to India. Are they Pakistani diasporas? Are they Indian diasporas? How does it work? So some people have defined this partition refugees as diasporas. A scholar has defined that. So how each scholar defines diaspora in a particular way, you have to look at how they are defined. In contemporary times, diaspora formations are complex, and the reason for the formation is manifold. It's not just that people who migrate immediately come together and form diasporas. People communities are not homogeneous across the world. India specifically is a great case for heterogenization. An Indian Telugu or a thin Indian Malayali will have nothing in common with the Indian Punjabi or an Indian Haryanvi. And yet, both of them will be defined as an Indian diaspora. Diasporic identities have become deterritorialized. Remark that the nation has outgrown the state because of its diasporic tentacles are constructed and deconstructed in a flexible and situational way. So, diasporic identities itself and concept of diaspora. So, there is no fixed category, it keeps moving. So, you have to look at how they are defined, who defines it, on what basis they are defining it, what is the context of their coming together, how they are coming together, etc., etc. Defining the term or coming out with an ideal type is often confronted with the problem of applicability. To treat diaspora as homogeneous would be unfair. What needs to be highlighted here that every act of migration does not necessarily lead to diasporic formation. Just because people have migrated does not mean they will come together. And if they don't come together, there is no diasporic formation. So diasporic formation also is Cohen says time has to pass before migrant community can be called a diaspora. And yet we keep moving between migrants and diasporas. So Indian migrants, Indian diasporas. Okay, let's come to the. Are you able to hear my voice, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Last term, transnationalism and globalization. Again, as I said, just in case there is some concept you're not able to follow or there is a certain amount of confusion, A, you can stop me and ask me. B, when you study the units, maybe some things may get more clearer. In case you still have some issues and you want to clarify, you can ask me a question at any moment of time today or as I said, I'm not on WhatsApp, I'm on Telegram and Signal as a messaging app. We can do that. Transnationalism denotes transcending the strict discipline of national boundaries. Globalization implies development, increasing integrate. So globalization happened because of faster transportation world to another part of the world. There are faster transportation methods. Today, internet enables you a 24/7 connection, a 365-day connection. You're never far away from home in a particular way because signals are available everywhere. Internet is just almost available. Almost 2 billion people are connected on the internet through using social media. There are other ways of connecting. For example, Tesla Starlink is able to provide internet connectivity at places even during war and so on and so forth. More and more people are getting onto the internet. Both the processes espouse for free flow of capital, ideas, and people. Also remember, the history of human society is a history of movement. And internet is basically a continuation of the history of human beings, a free flow of ideas, a free flow of movement. There is this debate between why Do we need, border restrictions, visa restrictions? Why can't there be a free flow of movement? So now there is a new concept of what is called a digital diaspora, where people are able to get visas on landings. They can work. They are from one place. They can countries like Dubai, countries like many countries in places like Dubai, many countries in South America are creating this digital diaspora enclaves where people can sit down and work. And today, because of internet, because of work from home facility and all these tech gadgets, you don't need to be at a particular place to work. You can be from any place from where you can work. Fashionable, widely used term, transnationalism has become a fashionable and widely used term, closely linked to the forces of globalization, modern communication technology, easy and affordable transportation, blah, blah, blah. Let me move forward. Transnational relations are maintained and sustained through web, social networks, increased transnational. So transnationalism is the fact that a person is there, can be a person of in multiple nations or multiple nation states, in understanding different global issues, politics, criminal activities, social, economic, and cultural one. And if you see today the way cultures move, Halloween gets celebrated in India. It has nothing to do with with the Indian community, and yet some people find it cool, so they celebrate it. I see Westerners dancing to Indian songs in the Olympics. I was told one particular team did their swimming routine on an Indian song. This is transnationalism. Cultures are moving, things, ideas are moving. It's a phenomenon only made possibly by advanced transportation, communication technologies over the last two decades. So today, people who migrate, uh, let's say an Indian who migrates to, let's say, the US, can have business interests in the US, can have properties in London, can move to Copenhagen, and so on and so forth. Then there is transnationalism from above. There are these bodies like the World Health Organization, World Bank, and there is transnationalism from below. Involves transnational migration, migrant experience. So people could move from here to, let's say, Kenya. From Kenya, they go to the US. They have interests. They understand cultures of Africa. They understand cultures of North America, political ties, identities, cross-national identities. Affects diverse areas, policy, foreign policy, social values, cultural constants, trans-locality presence, the idea that nation state. So there is this feeling that the nation state has been displaced, though we know for the fact that the nation state is going nowhere, because inevitably what is your identity? One of your identity is the passport, which is given by a nation state. To move from one nation state to another nation state, you need a visa, which is given by another nation state. So nation states still are very strong. They can allow you to move or stop you from moving. But nation state is a political concept, and people are moving it in a particular way. States continue to remain the focal points of international order, but they are no more the only actors. So today there are non-state actors. There are these supranational bodies. European Union, for example, is a supra-union body, national body. Through modern technology, cyberspace, transnational spaces permeate here to local levels, generating transnational. So today, in a village level, there might be a person who might have gone, let's say, working in the Gulf or working in Europe, and that person carries, different culture back home, changes social institutions, so on and so forth. Connections strengthened rather than erase local identity. So there is this negotiation which happens in terms of the fact, even though there is a cultural flow which is happening, and if you see, migration is increasing, and yet political fighting parties fighting migration, and yet people are migrating. So this negotiation between change and continuity continues. In fact, these frictions will increase, but these are negotiated spaces. Studies have found better immigrant found that better the immigrant is integrated educationally and professionally, the more likely he or she is engaged in transnational. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of times you see non-resident Indians, in fact, people of Indian origins or Indian diasporas, making big comments on politics, of our culture, of Indians. And I see this tension between Indians residing in India making this comment, "Ki you India." But the fact is, these guys are Indian diasporas, and because they are, economically and politically well off, they feel that connection and the need to intervene. Political, transnational political conscious among diaspora as a form of long distance nationalism. Today's human mobility cannot be viewed as a rupture between here and there as a social relation, but a continuous. So today it is no longer you are here or there, it's a continuity. Challenges homogenization led to repositioning of state. Connectivity encourages heterogeneity, discourages homogeneity, place of distinct cultures. So there is this negotiation of a homogenization, and yet there is this fight between homogenization and heterogeneity. Let me stop here, and if there are any questions to ask. In fact, I've packed, let me put on my video. I've packed a lot of concepts. If there are any questions that you need to ask, you can come back next class and ask me questions. There's a message. So Domingos, typically 3 months to 6 months or one. My internet is showing as unstable. Hang on. Let me keep my video off. Guys, can you hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Domingos, so Domingos, normally 1 year is a very small period of time for consideration of diasporas. They would typically be a migrant, typically, as they say, a longish period of time. There are no scholar has defined the time period before which a migrant turns a diaspora. Domingos?
Okay, sir. Yes. It
So,
was tracking,
so
but
inevitably, assuming the fact there are 500 people who are from Mozambique who have come to India for a medical treatment, and they are staying here for, let's say, an year, and these guys are connected together, and they are talking in one voice, then they would be categorized as a diaspora.
okay. Like the students, we can consider them diaspora.
See, more of so students, because they would be on a longer period of time, they would be much more connected, and they could be classified as a diaspora.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
But more often than not, a longer stay, as I said, the scholars have said a longish period of time. Again, nobody has defined how long. But the fact is, if they are longish period of time, and then they are connected to each other, and they are, they not just connected to each other, but they are lobbying for a better, place for themselves in the host country or in the home country, then they are determined as a diaspora.
Okay, sir. I got it.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Any other question?
Sir, my voice is clear, please.
Yes, Gurpreet, tell me.
Sir, with reference to the push factors, the case of Punjab, there is
Okay.
a no government job.
Okay.
Employment rate is much lower than the country's average rate. The
Hmm.
corruption, fear of drug abuse, bad governance,
Hmm.
that results in
Hmm.
mass migration from Punjab. The students, about
Correct.
1.5 lakhs per annually, sir, they are leaving
Hmm.
the country.
Hmm.
So how we will define these factors? How the
The
mass migration can be stopped, or is it a genuine phenomena or abnormal phenomena?
Gurpreet, what you have said are push factors. So, for example, if there is a drug problem, families would want their youngsters to go out of the country rather than fall into the drug issue. That's a push factor. Corruption becomes a push factor.
Sir,
Non availability of jobs, both private or government, becomes a push factor.
sir,
But then this push factor has to have a complementary pull factor. So, for example, Canada might offer a place where a person from Punjab can go there, and because there are already relatives, friends, or people from the same village, getting a job might be much easier.
sir,
That becomes a pull factor.
true, sir.
Or the quality of life can be a pull factor. So, for example, I was speaking to a relative of mine who's right now in Toronto, and he says the AQI is 1, 2, or 3. We breathe in AQI of 100, 170. In Diwali times, it reaches 500.
Okay,
For
sir.
a person who has asthma or a respiratory trouble, this would be a push factor, and that would be a pull factor.
Sir, got it. But they are going for education, but they're further only have a choice of the lower class jobs. Earlier, from the Punjab, the migrations for higher studies. But now, in study in the form of a 10+2, in the form of a study, they are looking for the PR. And further, they are
So,
only either working in the factories or they are drivers or something. But
correct,
it's
correct.
a lower class group only.
Absolutely. But the point is what a person, when the person or the family is taking a decision for migration, they are looking at many other factors. What are the other factors? A, the fact is there is a drug problem. B, there is high corruption. C, lack of governance. D, quality of life. And when they go out there, they look at the fact that they have to compromise in terms of the status of job or the salary. But what it overcomes is the quality of life. What they overcome is the security. What they overcome is the
Sir, true.
infrastructure.
Sir,
When they look at
sir,
all
I
this,
got it. But here is my question. The system plays a great role. The system comprises of political structure plus bureaucracy. So
correct,
the state government must do something for that. This is my
correct.
question.
Correct.
This is
You are right.
exactly what is happening with the
Gurpreet,
state.
you are absolutely right. So inevitably in all migration in any country or any part of the world, there is this external thing which is called the system or the state or the government, which also adds to a particular push factor for an individual to migrate. Look at the fact that okay, 1.5 lakh students are migrating, but we have so look at think about the fact that Gujarat is touted as a very developed place, but a lot of Gujaratis are caught doing illegal migration or getting smuggled into US and Canada.
Sir,
So inevitably, we need to understand how people across the country or across global south or across geographies perceive their situation vis-a-vis the situation around them, and then they decide to migrate or not to migrate. Gurpreet?
sir, got it, sir.
So inevitably today governments are looking at the fact that how to obviously how to stop migration, because migration becomes a brain drain. But at the same time, also remember, with a country like India with a large population, for example, Philippines encourages migration because it gets remittances and its GDP is driven by remittances.
Yeah.
So sometimes the governments encourage migration. For example, China, in fact, the migration has come down with the development of China. So, see, the fact is, inevitably, the Indian state will figure it out, or may figure it out, or may never figure it out, that, people who are going out is a loss of human capital.
Sir.
And see, as an academician or a scholar or a student studying this, you are able to determine, oh, this could be the case. Your job can be to provide solutions in terms of possibly writing a research paper,
Sir.
or if you become you get a role in terms of formulating diaspora policy in, let's say, Punjab state. Well, you can say that these are the things that you can do. Otherwise, these are academics and scholarly pursuits to look at various things and possibly write a paper to influence policymakers to do something better. Could be.
Got it, sir. But it's a sorry state of affairs for Punjab state.
I know it's. If you look at the Indian state, look at the fact that today, when Bangladesh issue happened, 9,000 students were evacuated from Bangladesh. And that means 9,000 students were studying in Bangladesh from India.
Sure.
Which shows that somewhere down the line, more work needs to be done in academics, in terms of education, in terms of quality of education, in terms of number of educational institutions.
Sure.
So, developing countries have multiple problems.
Sir, got
Okay.
it, sir.
Okay, great.
So thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, any other question? Any other question, guys? Okay, in case there is no other question, we'll call it a day today. It's already 4:05. We'll meet next Saturday at 3 o'clock. We will be doing diaspora networks. I'll come back to the flow that I was doing, unit 51. In case during the course of the week you think of some question, we can discuss it next week. Or you can write to me. As I said, you can write to me on my mail and we can talk about it. You can go through units 1 and 2 of MDI 001. I keep repeating, in case you have not got the course material, all the course material is available on eGyan course. You can download the units, and you can ask me whenever we meet next. Have a nice weekend. Have a nice week ahead, and we'll see next Saturday at 3 o'clock.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
sir.
much, sir. Thank you,
Bye,
sir.
guys. Bye, guys.
Bye, sir.
Bye.